Ladies and gentlemen, this past October, Vietnam was re-elected as a member of the United Nations Human Rights Council for the 2026-2028 term, securing the highest number of votes within the Asia-Pacific group. This is a source of great joy and pride for the country. At the same time, the achievement represents the highest level of recognition by the international community of the sound policies and guidelines of the Communist Party and State of Vietnam, as well as the country's historic accomplishment over the past 80 years since its independence and 40 years of national renewal under the đổi mới process, particularly in the promotion and protection of human rights. To gain deeper insights into the significance of this important milestone, as well as the expectations placed upon Vietnam in this new term, today we are honored to welcome two distinguished speakers, Ms. Pauline Tamesis, United Nations Resident Coordinator in Vietnam, Ambassador Mai Phan Dung, Head of the Permanent Mission of Vietnam to the United Nations World Trade Organization and other international organizations in Geneva, Switzerland. We sincerely thank our two distinguished guests for joining us today's programs. First of all, could you please share your thought on Vietnam, the re-elections to the United Nations Human Rights Council for the 2026-2028 terms with an exceptionally high number of votes? And in your view, what key factors have contributed to the strong support for Vietnam from the international community?
The very high level of support for Vietnam's re-election to the United Nations Human Rights Council for the 2026-2028 term is an important recognition by the international community. It reflects confidence in Vietnam's engagement with multilateral institutions, its constructive participation in the Human Rights Council's work, and its willingness to engage in dialogue on complex human rights issues. I believe there are many important factors that have contributed to this outcome. For one, Vietnam's active and responsible role during its previous term on the Council is a strong demonstration of its commitment. Vietnam's emphasis on cooperation and dialogue is noteworthy. More importantly for me, Vietnam's clear articulation of priorities that resonate with global concerns such as sustainable development, climate change, digital transformation, and the promotion of gender equality. Equally important is Vietnam's continued engagement with United Nations human rights mechanisms, including the Universal Periodic Review and its stated commitment to translating international obligations into national action, with a view to advancing equality, non-discrimination, and inclusive participation. At the same time, such strong support also carries expectations. Membership in the Council is not only an honor, but a responsibility to continue strengthening human rights protections at home, including by ensuring that all people, without discrimination, are able to participate meaningfully in public life and benefit equally from development, while also contributing constructively to collective efforts at the global level.
Ambassador Mai Phan Dung, could you share the key activities and notable initiatives undertaken by our missions during Vietnam the recent terms on the United Nations Human Rights Council?
Thank you for your question. In Geneva, the engagement of our mission with the Human Rights Council has always been guided by one consistent direction: be constructive, be consistent, and keep the Council focused on solutions that improve people's lives. First, we work around a clear set of priorities, so our engagement was steady and predictable during our membership term. Second, we invested in cross-regional cooperation and consensus outcomes, because in a divided world, trust is built when countries can still agree on practical steps. In that spirit, Vietnam tabled, on behalf of cross-regional core groups, resolution on commemoration of the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the 30th anniversary of the Vietnam Declaration and Program of Action, and also the resolution on climate change and human rights, focusing on just transition, both adopted by consensus with broad co-sponsorship. Third, we led cross-regional joint statements such as on accelerating SDG implementation to promote gender equality and on humanization and human rights, to keep attention on cooperation, inclusion, and real-world needs. Fourth, we also engage through international panels and other council-related activities to share experiences and learn from partners, which is essential for credibility. Taken together, these efforts helped strengthen confidence that Vietnam can work with different regions, bridge differences, and contribute responsibly to common priorities. Our re-election to the Council for the term 2026-2028, with the highest number of votes within the Asia-Pacific group, was not only the recognition of national progress, but also our approach in Geneva, respectful, practical, and cooperative. We see it as trust earned through sustainable work, and also as a responsibility to keep delivering in the next term. We'll keep that same cooperative spirit, and we welcome partners to work with us on practical initiatives.
Over the past period, which of Vietnam the contributions and commitment to the United Nations Human Rights Council have impressed you the most? And how do these contributions advance the United Nations, the collective effort in this vital field?
In the first term, Vietnam's contributions to the Human Rights Council have been notable for their emphasis on dialogue, inclusivity, and practical cooperation. Vietnam has consistently supported discussions that link human rights with development, the 2030 Agenda, and emerging global challenges such as climate change and digital transformation, areas where international cooperation is essential. By framing issues of climate change and digital transformation through a human rights lens, Vietnam can now contribute to discussions on how digital transition and technological innovations are advancing development while respecting human dignity, equality, and non-discrimination. This approach aligns well with the principles of the Global Digital Compact, which seeks to ensure that digital transformation is inclusive, rights respecting, and benefits all. In addition, these contributions are reinforced in the pledges and commitments Vietnam made in the context of its candidacy to the Human Rights Council. Vietnam's continued commitment to legal reforms in line with international human rights standards, human rights education, and training for law enforcement contributes to strengthening institutions that play a critical role in protecting rights in an equitable and non-discriminatory manner. These contributions advance the United Nations' collective efforts by reinforcing a vision of human rights that is universal, inclusive, and responsive to contemporary challenges.
Ambassador Mai Phan Dung, what have been Vietnam the most valuable lesson learned from its period term of the United Nations Human Rights Council, and how will these lessons be carried forward and further applied in the coming term?
If I have to sum up our lesson learned from 2023-2025, they are captured in the motto that guided our work: respect and understanding, dialogue and cooperation, all human rights for all. First, respect and understanding. Trust at the Council starts with how we listen, even when perspectives differ. Showing respect, speaking with sincerity, and acknowledging each country's circumstances helps create space where progress becomes possible. Second, dialogue and cooperation. Early consultations and prioritization of solutions can unite, not divide. In practice, that means working across regions, keeping language balanced, and supporting technical cooperation, because sustainable outcomes are built through partnership, not pressure. Third, all human rights for all. A comprehensive approach is essential. Civil and political rights, as well as economic, social, cultural, and right to development, reinforce each other in real life. This is also why we treat UN mechanisms like the Universal Periodic Review as tools for continuous improvement, and we continue engaging with treaty bodies and special procedures in a spirit of openness and responsibility. In the term 2026-2028, we will carry this lesson forward with humility, working with openness to keep the Council effective and focus on practical cooperation.
Thank you, Ambassador Mai Phan Dung. Ms. Pauline Tamesis, how do you assess Vietnam the efforts in promoting and protecting human rights in recent years, including its engagement in the Universal Periodic Review process?
In recent years, Vietnam has taken a number of important steps to advance the promotion and protection of human rights. Its continued participation in the Universal Periodic Review process, including the fourth cycle, demonstrates openness to dialogue and peer review, as well as a willingness to consider recommendations related to both civil and political rights and economic, social, and cultural rights. The development of national action plans to implement accepted EPR recommendations and the recently adopted National Action Plan to implement recommendations under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights provide an important framework for translating international commitments into national policies. These plans offer an opportunity to address disparities affecting women, children, persons with disabilities, ethnic minorities, and other groups in vulnerable situations. These efforts are positive and should be acknowledged. At the same time, the effectiveness of these efforts will depend on implementation and practice. Continued attention to participation, access to remedies, and the impact of laws and policies on different groups will be essential to ensure that progress is inclusive and that rights are enjoyed equally by all. As a member of the Human Rights Council, Vietnam has an opportunity to further demonstrate how international standards can be implemented in ways that promote social cohesion and inclusion.
Ambassador Mai Phan Dung, during the 2023-2025 term, Vietnam pursued 8 priorities areas. So could you share how these priorities will be carried forward and further advanced in the time ahead?
This is a very practical question. These 8 priorities are our guiding direction going into the next term. Improving the Human Rights Council efficiency in tandem with the promotion of international law, addressing human rights in the context of climate change and digital transformation, combating violence and discrimination, strengthening protection for vulnerable groups, promoting gender equality, and advancing right to health with quality education and human rights education. With regard to the Council effectiveness and international law, we'll continue supporting approaches that make the Council more practical and outcome-oriented, reducing duplication, prioritizing dialogue, and encouraging technical cooperation where countries request support. Relating to the climate change and digital transformation, we will promote a balanced approach, protecting human rights during transition, sharing experiences, and working with partners so that no one is left behind, especially communities that are more exposed or have fewer resources. And on gender equality, vulnerable groups, combating violence and discrimination, and core social rights like health, work, and education will stay actively engaged with a clear preference for initiatives that are inclusive and capable of building broad consensus across regions. For us, the 8 priorities are commitment to contribute responsibly to shared global concerns in a spirit of respect and understanding, dialogue and cooperation, and all human rights for all. We look forward to working with openness to translate these priorities into practical cooperation and shared progress.
Ms. Pauline Tamesis, amid both opportunities and intertwined challenges, how can the United Nations further promote their cooperation with Vietnam in the time ahead to protect and advance human rights both within Vietnam and in contribution to regional and global efforts?
Looking ahead, the United Nations can further strengthen cooperation with Vietnam through sustained dialogue, technical assistance, and partnerships that support inclusive and rights-based development. This includes supporting the effective implementation of Vietnam's human rights commitments under international treaties, the UPR, and its voluntary pledges for the 2026-2028 term, including the commitment to issue a voluntary UPR midterm report. There's also a strong potential for deeper collaboration in areas highlighted in Vietnam's new pledges to the Human Rights Council, such as women's leadership and the Women, Peace and Security Agenda, human rights education, digital rights, including child protection online, and the human rights dimensions of climate change and digital transformation. In this context, collaboration aligned with the Global Digital Compact can help ensure that digital transformation in Vietnam promotes equality, protects children online, and avoids new form of exclusion or discrimination. These are issues of global relevance where Vietnam's experiences can contribute to regional and international discussions while benefiting from international good practice. This approach is aligned with Vietnam's commitments made in the context of its Human Rights Council candidacy to promote dialogue, cooperation, tolerance, and mutual understanding with countries, international partners, and relevant stakeholders in support of the realization of all human rights for all. More broadly, cooperation between the United Nations and Vietnam can continue to emphasize participation, transparency, and inclusion. And Vietnam's re-election to the Human Rights Council offers a valuable opportunity to deepen this partnership, strengthen human rights protection at home, while contributing constructively to regional and global efforts to advance equality, non-discrimination, and human dignity for all.
Ambassador Mai Phan Dung, could you please share Vietnam's readiness on the new term to the United Nations Human Rights Council? And from these important milestones, could you also convey a broad message about Vietnam's multilateral diplomacy, as well as its consistent commitment to the protection and promotion of human rights?
Readiness means continuity and seriousness. We are not starting the membership term 2026-2028 from zero. We are building on experience from previous terms, and we have strengthened coordination so that our engagement in Geneva remains timely, consistent, and focused. On the broader message, Vietnam's multilateral diplomacy is about being a reliable and responsible partner. We believe multilateralism is essential, especially now when climate impacts public health, inequality, and digital space create challenges that no country can solve alone. And our human rights message is consistent. Human rights are universal, but implementation must be practical and grounded in people's lives. That is why we focus on rights that are closest to people's daily lives: health and healthcare, education, and decent work, to name some. Because effective implementation is what ultimately makes human rights real. Internationally, we continue to engage constructively with UN mechanisms. We are party to 7 of the 9 core human rights treaties and have ratified 25 ILO conventions. So, re-election to the Human Rights Council for the term 2026-2028 is both an honor and a responsibility, and we intend to earn that trust through constructive work. We'll continue working with all partners so that all human rights for all is advanced through genuine dialogue and cooperation.
Thank you, Ambassador, for your sharing. Finally, on the occasion of Human Rights Days, may I invite both of our distinguished speakers to share the key message you wish to emphasize on human rights, as well as your hopes and aspirations for a better world, one to which Vietnam will continue to contribute positively and responsibly. First, I want to hear your opinion from Ms. Pauline Tamesis.
This year's International Human Rights Day reminds us that human rights are essentials for our everyday life. I'd like to wish everyone fruitful fulfillment of human rights as part of their everyday living in Vietnam, for prosperity, for peace, and harmony and good life. Thank you.
Ambassador Mai Phan Dung, do you have any conclusion to the viewer today?
Human Rights Day is a reminder that human rights are universal aspiration and common values of humanity, and they are best protected when countries choose dialogue over confrontation and cooperation over division. For a better world, the hope is quite simple: fewer conflicts, more trust, and more practical solidarity, especially for those most at risk, including women, children, persons with disabilities, and communities vulnerable to climate impacts. This is also why Vietnam has supported work at the Council linking human rights to real global challenges, including the consensus approach reflected in resolutions such as resolution on commemoration of the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the 30th anniversary of the Vienna Declaration and Program of Action, and resolution on climate change and human rights, focusing on just transition. And finally, being elected to serve the Human Rights Council is not a trophy, it is a profound responsibility. Vietnam will continue to contribute in the spirit we have consistently advocated: respect and understanding, dialogue and cooperation, and ensuring all human rights for all.
Thank you, Ms. Pauline Tamesis, and thank you, Ms. Ambassador Mai Phan Dung, for joining today's programs. Distinguished viewers, through the insightful analysis shared by our two distinguished experts, we have gained a deeper understanding of the significance in Vietnam the re-election as a member of the United Nations Human Rights Council for the 2026-2028 terms, as well as the expectation of the international community regarding Vietnam the important role. We have also seen clearly Vietnam the consistent and principled approach to the promotion and protection of human rights. We would like to express our sincere appreciation to our two distinguished guests for joining us on today's program. Thank you very much for your attention. Goodbye, and we look forward to see you again.